Hi, it's Sherry again. I am going to welcome you to part 2 of the summary on chapter 2 of the book Guinea Pigs by Dr. John Hall. It's an interesting book. We've covered part 1. I think by reading it, you will definitely benefit yourself. And there's a lot of need-to-know information in there that I will share with you in chapter 2. That is MK which stands for mind control. So again, thank you for your time. I'm sure you're busy and your time is valuable, as is this information in this video. So stick with me and let's share, sit for a few moments and let's learn and share, and you won't regret it. So a little bit about me. I told you before, I'm kind of a word nerd. I love books and libraries, and I got to the point where I read a lot, and I read a lot of good books with good, helpful information, and I don't just want to keep that information to myself. It seems like the kind and wise thing to do when you have knowledge would be to share it. So that's why this video exists. I'm sharing the summary of chapter 2 in the book of Guinea Pigs by Dr. John Hall, and that chapter is on MK Ultra. MK stands for mind control. I think you will find this an interesting summary. It's not going to take that long, and and let's get started. One thing, I apologize, I'm kind of new to this, and you're going to see me sometimes saying and you're going to see me sometimes looking to my right, because that is where my notes are, and I wrote notes because I could not memorize all this, and it's a lot of information, and I want to give it to you because you're going to love it after you have it. It's one of those things, I guess, that you don't know you need or even want until you get it, and then you're like, oh my goodness, I want more, and how did I live without this? This makes life so much easier having this. So that is my goal for you, and that's what I want to share with you. Okay, so with no further ado, let us start the summary on chapter 2 of the book Guinea Pigs by Dr. John Hall. Okay, whew, got out the spiel. Now we can get down to business. Again, excuse me for looking through my notes. I'd like to just go over the about 3 to 5 key points that we're going to be covering in this video. We're going to review a little bit about the history of the mind control experimentation done on human guinea pigs, non-consensually. We're also going to talk about, we're going to go more into detail about what is mind control, how it's also called behavior modification, the making of a mind control slave. I know that one interests you. I know it does. I know, because when you hear the word, slave, and, you're like, wow, I never want to be one. Well, if you have a mind, it's actually able to be enslaved, and you don't want that. So let's talk about it, from somebody who knows. Okay. Okay, we're going to talk about, let's see, I'm going to break it up into 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to break it up into 4 points. All right. I like to tell you so that you can follow along, because I know from watching videos myself, especially videos like this where you're summarizing a lot of information and it's somebody talking and blah, 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 and you don't know me, and who is this woman? What's she talking about? Is it interesting? Do I care? Why is the video so grainy? Who is she? I know, and I don't, and I respect that, and I want you to still be able to get this message because it's good info. So I'm going to try my best to make it easy. 4 points we're going to cover in this video. Okay. Again, we're going to go review the history of mind control, back when it started in World War II. We're going to talk specifically about the mind control, what it is, as far as behavioral modification, and using it to make mind control slaves. We're going to talk about the technology used in making a mind control slave. And we're going to talk about specific research and doctors and their studies and how they came about to develop the mind control technology that exists today. All right? Bear with me. This is a lot of information, but we're going to get through this. All right. I just want to show you the cover of the book in this little picture here. Okay. This is Dr. John Hall, Guinea Pigs. That's the cover of the book. In case you would like to go purchase it at the store or order it on Amazon or, you know, go to your local library. It's a good book. It's totally worth it. I digress. I wouldn't be reviewing it, right, if I didn't think it was worth it. It's worth it. And I'm pretty picky. Okay, so in video part 1, in chapter 1, we talked about how in World War II there were Nazi soldiers that were actually brought over to the United States here, and specifically medical personnel like doctors, scientists, physicists, and psychiatrists, things of that nature. Let's see. I'm just going to show you a little picture for visual cue. Excuse my sticky note. Here you are. So this is just, obviously this is not them, but this is showing you the wide variety of different medical personnel that were sent over. So it wasn't just doctors, you know, it was doctors, dentists, psychiatrists, scientists, physicists, etc., etc. Lots of them. And that was for the research that they had done already over in World War II in Germany on the POWs there. So, one of the areas of interest that Nazi Germany was interested in, along with the rest of the world, we've always been fascinated by mind control, right? This thing right here. Ladies and gentlemen, don't ever let anybody tell you that people want you for your outside. A lot of times it is your personality. It's what makes you you. And it's wonderful, you know, and it's unique for all of us. It's very beautiful. This is us, okay? I digress. So, there's always been an interest in mind control. Once the mind control program was brought over here with those key players from Germany, they continued the mind control portions and along with the others of the program, and they named it MK Ultra. M stands for mind, K stands for control. Okay, well, Sherry, K is not, you know, control is with a C. I know, but because it's German, it was the German K instead of the English C. So MK Ultra. Mind control program. That was the old name that it ran under. It actually ran under a couple different names throughout the years. MK Surge, Bluebird, and now rumoredly the program was supposed to have been, you know, ended. However, it's rumored to have continued under a new name. I don't know if you guys remember from the first video, but I'll show you the picture. This might jar your memory. Mind control program is under a new name, allegedly, and this is the name. Yep, Project Monarch, in paying homage to the monarch butterfly for many reasons. We don't have time to get specifically into that right now, but I know that with the monarch butterfly, it is capable of things like epigenetic memory, which means it can remember, meaning with your genetics, you have certain information programmed into you just from being born from your parents. So, and that they found that to be the case, especially with people, families of generational abuse, that they're able to, during traumatic times, you know, abuse, they're able to disassociate easier and quicker, I guess, than people who haven't had that type of abuse in their epigenetic memory. In a nutshell, that's how it goes. And then there's also the whole, you know, the caterpillar is in the cocoon and it's struggling. And then when it's, you know, done with the struggle, it gives birth and it becomes a beautiful butterfly. right? And that is supposed to envision the struggle of a human monarch slave, that you're struggling through this traumatization, and that when you're all done, you'll emerge a beautiful butterfly, which butterfly meaning the mind control slave that they want you to be. But we'll get to that in a moment, okay? But Project Monarch. So we talked before about how the word behavioral modification is interchangeable with the word mind control. I just would like to show you a visual cue, just for emphasis. I feel like it helps. Otherwise, it's just me and my face and me talking, and that, you know, that's okay too. But here we go for emphasis. So we have behavioral modification, and then equals the same thing as mind control, and then mind control in quotations, MK. So it's the same, interchangeable, really, verbiage. The reason I say that is because if you think of, if you will reference this visual cue, if the mind, okay, as in mind control, the mind has both thoughts and emotions. So when you act on those thoughts and emotions that are in your mind, the manifestation of those thoughts and emotions is a behavior, right? So, okay, we'll make it simple, like with a baby. If a baby's hungry, they cry, right? So the emotion is, well, that would be more of a physical need. But anyways, they would feel hunger, okay, because physical need, hunger, sleep, etc., that is also in the mind. And then the crying would be the behavior. So, and then in maybe with adults, it would be something like, I feel happy, an emotion, so then I sing. Singing would be the manifestation of that happiness, okay? So in mind control, if you're controlling these two things, the thoughts and emotions, then you're directly affecting the behavior, the manifestation of those thoughts and emotions in the behavior. So you're modifying the behavior. That's why it's the same. Okay, that was very wordy, but you understand. Behavior modification, mind control, interchangeable. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, let's get to the slave part of it, enslavement. Sorry, my hair is acting weird right now. It's all right, we're going to go through with it. I'm not doing another take. It's late. We got a lot to cover. We're doing this, okay? You guys stick with me. All right, mind control slaves, MK slaves. What is an MK slave, you asked? Well, we just spoke on what thoughts and emotions make up the mind. Each one of us has different thoughts and emotions, as we should. We all have different personalities. We're different people. God made us separate individuals. Okay. The goal of mind control is and always has been to control thoughts and emotions, thus the behaviors of others, and to the point where they'll do the bidding of another, even against their own free will. Okay, so it's pretty serious stuff. You know, this is our thoughts and emotions. It's a lot of them, and they're deep and they're personal to us. Some of the examples when you make a MK slave, mind control slave, think on the terms of like, I don't know, a killing machine, a super soldier, something like the Bourne Identity, Jason Bourne. That was a mind control slave. A Manchurian Candidate, actually, is the specific kind. Also spies. You've seen that. You know, you always see them as like super spies, and they have all these incredible powers and abilities and training. Usually those are, many times that can be representing mind control slaves. And then, of course, you have the sexy version, a lot of times assigned to females, but not always. Males can also be mind controlled. They're called beta sex kitten mind control slaves. and those are used obviously in illicit sexual activity. I don't know, name your level, or whatever they need to be used for. So you got sex rings, you have seduction, for like blackmailing purposes, etc., etc. Depends on the level of the slave, who they're trained to service, and things of that nature. Also too, I want to mention, MK slaves can be things on a lower level, like a local drug courier. That would be, you could we'll talk about how, but you could enslave somebody, make them an MK slave, and then turn them into, a drug mule or a drug courier, right? Against their own well-being. Okay. So, making an MK slave, it sounds impossible, but unfortunately, I assure you it's not. Before I read this book and before I been doing research on this, I didn't realize that I thought that was impossible. I thought, as a Christian, I thought there is no way that somebody can get you to act against your own will. Our will is powerful. We have the final say so. And, that's not even possible. That's only in the movies, Hollywood. And, it's, I learned that actually it is possible. So it's a very unpleasant thought, because nobody wants to think of themselves as being able to be controlled by another, to be enslaved. No one wants to ever think that about themselves, that somebody's capable of controlling them. But again, it is possible, and I'd like to, this book breaks it down a little bit. Okay, so we're going to get to how. All right, so we covered, the history, where this all came from, World War II. We talked about what the program is actually called. It's good to have a name for something. It's rumored, allegedly called the Monarch Project, or Project Monarch. And we talked about what mind control is. Basically taking the thoughts and emotions and will and intellect of someone and overriding that and making them do the bidding of another. Okay. Interesting stuff, huh? I told you. Oh, let me show you another picture. Okay. This one you've seen before. We're just gonna, for emphasis, bring it up again. This is a guinea pig, a human guinea pig in a cage. There she is with her water bottle, etc. For the point. This is non-consensual human experimentation. All right, and what is the goal here? What is the goal here? The goal is to control this. This is what they're after, okay? It's like the old days with the pirates, and they're after the bounty or the booty, right? What is that? Oh, not anymore. It's not gold. No. This guy, this girl, right here. Big, beautiful brain. It's amazing. Remember that. We are amazingly built. Okay, we're going to talk about how do you make someone an MK slave. Okay, I'm going to get specific. I want to show you another picture, so I'm ruffling through papers here. I'm ruffling. Just hold on. I want to show you something. Hold on. I got to get faster at this. We're going to keep doing these. Okay, here we go. Ta-da! You guys remember this movie, right? Yeah, you know it. That's, what's his face? I don't want any copyright stuff. You know what I'm saying? You know who this is. Yeah, and you know the movie. And it was indeed about a Manchurian candidate mind control slave, right? And they named it Born Identity. Born, right? A play on the word born. Because when you're a slave, you're reborn, okay? And identity. So that identity was born from, being made into a mind control slave. Okay, so that's one example. I don't have any pictures of the beta sex kitten slaves, but you can Google it or whatnot, and you'll find tons of images. Images. It's late. But okay, we're gonna keep going. We're going. All right. So, how do you make an MK slave? Well, I'm glad you asked. I have the recipe right here. It's a 3 parts. Okay, you just need 3 things. Three major things. You know, it's just like any other recipe. You can add a little more, a little less, and this and that, or you can switch it up a little, but you got to have the main ingredients, okay? So I took the liberty of breaking down the three main ingredients to make a mind-controlled slave, which none of us want to be. Okay, so here's how it's done. I'll show you, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. Not sure if you know this, but on my computer screen, when I show this, it shows backwards to me. You know, the whole visual optics and all that. So you guys are seeing it. Excuse my handwriting, but you get the point. There's 1, 2, 3 ingredients needed to make a mind control slave. Those three things, as you just seen, for one, psychological trauma. Trauma-based conditioning. When you think of trauma, think of anything that causes emotional or physical pain. So we're talking things like abuse, rapes, sexual assaults, torture, verbal abuse, anything that hurts the soul, hurts the body, hurts the mind. Trauma is, I'm really emphatic on that one. Trauma, really, I mean, it's trauma. So, and it's conditioning because they condition you with being traumatized. You know, when you're traumatized, have you ever seen people and they just act a little different and you go, you know, geez, something's off, and it's probably because they've been trauma conditioned. They're traumatized, and so it makes you act different. And that's one of the reasons I'm here, because I want to help you avoid that if you can. So one, it's not always avoidable, but if we can, let's try, huh? Okay. So psychological trauma-based conditioning. Number 2, ritual abuse. Ritual abuse based torture things. We'll get more into that. Not too much, but we'll touch on it a little bit. Ritual abuse is going to involve things like sensory deprivation. Okay, sensory is like, picture your senses, you know, your eyes, your nose, your taste, your touch, your hearing. In ritual abuse based torture, they will either, it's called sensory management. Okay, so your senses, they can manage them either by flooding them. For instance, like too much bright light, right? I mean, and we're talking, you know, mind control training. So there's a lot that goes into it. So they would do something on that nature. You know, too much light in your eyes makes you not able to focus. It throws you off because your senses are flooded. Same thing with noise, too much noise. And, you know, it varies in degrees depending on what they're trying to produce. But you understand. In extreme cases, right? Blindfolding so you can't see, putting a hood over you, you know, tying you up so you can't move. You know, this is all ritual abuse based torture. Also, too, there's the use of drugs that can either flood or deprive your senses, right? Uppers, downers, LSD, hallucinogens, everything in between. Yeah. Okay. And the third thing, I digress. The third thing is technology. Okay. That's the third thing. I'm going to throw you this again in our recipe here, right? Okay. Third thing, technology. Specifically, I put on there EMF manipulation. Okay, EMF manipulation. We'll go into what EMFs are, but if anybody has heard me talk, that's like my new favorite word. It stands for electromagnetic frequencies. We'll get into it, what it is specifically, but that is definitely used in technology and to induce mind control. I'll explain. Alrighty. So, where are we at here? Okay, we talked about those three things. Okay, actually, you know what? We are... Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about... You guys want to talk a little bit about ritual abuse and sensory management, okay? I'm just going to touch on that briefly. So we talked about how it, sensory management is either limiting or flooding the body's natural senses. Senses being the 5 senses of sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell. Okay, so if you if you limit those things or if you flood those things with stimuli, you will cause trauma to the person. Okay. One of the most popular drugs used in the early days of MK Ultra was LSD. So it was used in behavioral studies. Again, we know that behavioral is another word for the manifestation of thoughts and emotions manifest into behavior. Okay, so behavioral studies, they wanted to control human emotion, human thought, and human behavior by any means available. And it worked mostly by distorting the mind's ability to regulate sensory input, what I was saying. Many things, of course, were frightening when you're under, a hallucinogenic, which adds to the trauma-based conditioning, which, of course, is the whole point when you're making a mind control slave. You want the person to be traumatized. It's a horrible thing. Why would anybody want to do that? Well, because they're making a mind control slave. So, I'm just the messenger. Okay, this is important to know because you don't ever want to be one. Sometimes you really can't help it, especially at the rate we're going, but let's just hear me out here, okay? So trauma-based conditioning is what this does when you give somebody these type of drugs and manage their sensory input or flood it or limit it. So and there are stories of safe houses being set up by agencies that posed as normal establishments like bars. Okay, this is kind of interesting, I thought. What would happen is that sometimes the people who ran the MK Ultra program, I'm not going to get into who. If you research it, you'll know. It's pretty obvious. But anywho, so that agency, whatever, set up safe houses. Okay, and basically they were like front buildings and businesses. So it would look like a bar for all purposes. If you and your friend wanted to go to a bar, okay, it'd be a building and there'd be people working there, look like a bartender, some patrons to make it look authentic, right? And at these bars, people were randomly chosen people. Remember, because this is the book called Guinea Pigs. This is non-consensual human experimentation. So you're not asked permission, right? Do you want some LSD in your beer? No, thank you. You're not getting asked. That's the funny part about this. That's why this is so important, to know how these things work so that you can deal with it if it ever happens to you. Okay, so anyways, these safe houses, they would randomly give people LSD in their food or drink, even their cigarettes you can put them in. These are agencies, so they have ways of doing things, right? They have scientists working for them and physicists and engineers, and of course they can put drugs in cigarettes, right? It's not that hard, I wouldn't think. No, it's not. Anywho, in the separate research that I did, in one experiment, they gave one of the own agents, because sometimes they would experiment on, I guess, their own agents too, and gave him LSD. He was tripping so bad on acid, LSD, he ran away from the building and they had to search for him. When they found him, they had to convince him to come back because he was so frightened and disoriented. There was also another agency employee by the name of Frank Olson, who died by suicide by jumping out of a 10-story window after being given a dose of LSD by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. We're going to go with that. The story goes that Dr. Olson was under the care of Dr. Lashbrook, who was supposed to monitor him with the LSD dose that he was given. And while Dr. Lashbrook slept in the other hotel room, Frank Olson jumped to his death after being given LSD. So yeah, that's just one, just trying to get the point across as to how mind control slaves are made and how to traumatize people. And definitely drugs like hallucinogenic drugs, LSD, was used during that torture sessions. Okay, so now you know about that. We're going to talk about, we're at 29 minutes. All right, you know what? I think this video, we're going to end here, okay? and then we're going to pick up and we're going to make a part 3, and we're going to talk about the technology used to make a mind control slave. Okay, technologies such as my favorite subject, EMFs. You are going to love it. You're not going to want to miss it. EMFs are in everything, and guess where they're at, which is the most amazing thing of all. That's right. Your actual human brain runs on electromagnetic frequencies, EMFs. That's how they're able to be manipulated, is because, well, all they need to do is manipulate the EMFs with other EMFs. We'll get specific, okay? But we're going to make this a 2-part video. I thank you guys for watching. If this is not your thing, don't feel bad. You know, that's okay. You can leave. Thank you for stopping. And if this is your thing, if you are interested and you want to hear more about these EMFs, about making a mind control slave, from this book written by this doctor who knows a little something and has done tons of research, then follow me on the next one, okay? We're going to do a 3rd video. All right, I'll see you there, hopefully. Have a good night. Thanks, bye.